forget that it was just been late that cost the Cuban revolutionaries the Moncada attacks loss in 1956. So we move, as people say now. So comrades, compatriots, dear compatriots and comrades, you're all welcome to today's Coalition for Revolution webinar on June 12 and the struggle for democracy. The June 12 presidential election in 1993 marked a watershed in Nigeria's history. Its annulment on June 24 opened the floodgates of struggle, and for 6 years, the working masses and youth waged tenacious struggle against military dictatorship. This struggle for democracy led to reinstatement of civil rule in 1999. But that did not translate into total liberation or a better life for the immense majority of Nigerians. A handful of politicians and rich business people have benefited immensely over the last 22 years, while life has become nasty, brutish, and short for most of us. The national situation has become even worse in the past 6 years. We now live in continual fear and danger of violent death. Poverty, unemployment, hunger, insecurity, and disillusionment have become our lot. And the government's response has been increasing repression, while corruption reeks to the high heavens at all levels of government. Separatist politics have risen as illusory perspectives of solution to the problem. It is clear that this is not the democracy we fought for. As Nigerians who seek to build a better society based on social justice, equal rights, and transparent government of the people, by the people, for the people, what are the lessons we can learn from the June 12 struggle for our struggle for democracy today? This is the question that we aim to collectively address here in this discussion, with lead-off presentations from a fantastic panel of activists who were at the front lines of the struggle during the June 12 period and who remain committed to the struggle for democracy today. I will introduce each of our panelists as they are called to speak. Each panelist will have a maximum of 12 minutes in the first round of discussion. The floor will then be open for questions and comments from participants. You can also send in questions or comments in the chat section throughout the duration of the meeting. During the questions and comments session, you'll have to electronically raise your hand and be called to make your intervention, please. In the second round of the panelists' presentations, which will last for 5 minutes each, they will respond to your questions and speak further on the theme of the meeting. The floor will then be open for your interventions once again. If we still have enough time, after which we'll wrap up the meeting with each speaker's final statements on the webinar. At this point in time, I would call on Comrade Maudi to speak to us. Comrade Maudi, you're welcome. Comrade Maudi is the General Secretary of Alliance for Credible Elections, ACE. She has been a social movement activist for over 3 decades. She started her working career with the Nigerian Union of Journalists as a researcher and documentation officer in charge of human rights violations of media practitioners, and as a link between NUJ and all the media houses. She also worked as National Projects Coordinator of Women in Nigeria, Eric Ball Foundation, and as Program Coordinator with the Gender and Development Action GADA, as well as serving as Executive Director of Baobab for Women's Human Rights, which is one of the leading historically women bodies in the country. Comrade Dema has held several other positions for time which we might not go into now, but she has also served as the General Secretary of Women in Nigeria and was Secretary of the Vibrant Women in Nigeria Lagos branch during the June 12 struggle. Comrade Emma, it is a pleasure to welcome you. This is clearly not the democracy we fought for. The elites have retained power as politicians. Radical civil society seems weak compared to the pro-democracy movement of the June 12 struggle. This is the situation both in terms of our mobilization on the streets and our total absence from state power. How do you think we could rebuild the radical civil society movement as a partisan force to end insecurity and corruption and build a more just society? Comrade Emma, you have the floor, please. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Comrade Baba, we hear you.
Okay, I got some messages in the chat that it was not audible. Did you lose sound at any point in time?
Not from my end, sir.
Okay, thank you. Comrade Ma, you have the floor, please. Okay, I would have to unmute, sorry. Yes, I've asked you to unmute, Comrade. Hello, Comrade Ma, you can unmute. Hello, Comrade Ma, you click on the unmute, you can unmute now. Hello? Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear only from, Comrade Map, could you kindly click on to unmute, please? I've asked you to unmute. Are you there? You have the floor. We can't hear you. Can you speak up? We can see you now, but we can't hear you. I've asked you to unmute. You click the mute button to unmute and take the floor, please. Can you hear me? Comrade Ma? We can't hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you. You click the unmute button. Yes, I think you should be audible now. I can see you are unmuted. Can you speak, please? Probably Comrade Ma is having some challenges now. We will try to help to troubleshoot that. If we'll come back to you, and I'll try in between to address whatever the problem is. We will have to save time and move on. We'll have to Yes, it's a great pleasure at this point to also to now call on Dr. Abiola Akiyode Afolabi. Comrade Abiola, I would say she's my sister from another mister. I remember very well our first meeting in 1990 at Ife. When I was on that campus for an internal workshop of a left group. I came with Segun Shongu, and ever since then, for me, I think she has been one of the sterling lights in the civil society movement generally. Biola is executive director of the Women Advocacy Research and Documentation Center, Ward C. Uh, she has extensive experience in the social movements, as I said, I mean, since the 1990s and during the struggle, the June 12th period, at a crucial part of it, she was PRO of the Obafemi Awolowo University OAU Students Union, and also played a very active role on the left in the National Association of Nigerian Students. In the past almost 2 decades now, since she's run Ward C, she's also helped with regards to the broader civil society movement in building the Transition Monitoring Group, a coalition of several civil society organizations involved in electoral processes, and which she chaired. She was a representative of civil society at the National Confab as well. And yeah, I just want to say welcome, Biola. And we are very happy to have you with us today. So, considering the question I would want to pose to you would be this: the radical left pro-democracy movements, the radical left's pro-democracy movement's role in mobilizing popular resistance against military dictatorship during the June 12th struggle was awesome. But the democracy we have today is clearly not what we fought for. But while the civil society is now broader, it seems to lack the kind of force, social force for fundamental change that the pro-democracy movement had. How do you think civil society today can rise up to the challenge of the struggle for system change? Comrade Biola, you have the floor, please. Hello?
Can you hear me? Hello,
Yeah,
can you
loud
hear me
and
now?
clear. Louder. I was beginning to think I had problem with my ears today, but yeah. We can hear you
Maybe
loud and clear now.
uh, maybe it's the earpiece I was using. So thank you so much, Comrade Aye, and I want to really um, uh, thank you for bringing this together today. It's quite important. Earlier on today, I was called by Plus TV. I think they are doing something around the June 12th, and they are looking at those who participated in the June 12th struggle, one way or the other. Yeah, I've had the opportunity of speaking to them on different issues on for other reasons. So I think they went to speak with a comrade. I think comrade Ayodele, who then talked to them about those who participated actively during that period and mentioned my name to them. So they came back very surprised, saying, "Oh, we didn't know that you featured that much during the June 12th struggle." And so they ended up getting some feedback from me on what happened and the role that we played during that period. I think that looking back, I think we were more organized, as a left group uh, before June 12th. And maybe through the process, because I told them that June 12th was not just an event, it was not just a day event. June 12th is a process, you know. After the election on June 12th, it ran through processes up until I think 1998, 1999, you know. So June 12th then became the symbol, you know, of struggle itself. Maybe I should also mention that before we get to conversation on June 12th in 1993, as left group, there were two sides of the story. One side was saying Tofa or Abiola, you know, and that was a question. I think the labor movement raised that question. And I guess the point that it was being raised at that time was also whether, in terms of the future of Nigeria and the fight against capitalism, because we grew up as Marxists and we were taught and told that capitalism cannot, you know, solve the problem of the world. So, as students of Marxism, you know, we also view the two actors in June 12th. We viewed them as um, bourgeoisie or capitalist at that time. So there were conversations about whether or not, as left movement, we should support or we should be part of the conversation on the June 12th issue or not, or not, since we're not sure whether that is going to in any way address the capitalism that was ravaging the world and which is still ravaging us as of today. So we had about two blocks, and I think the CD block were more uh, uh, clear on where to go with respect to canvassing for um, a change. Yes, we're all canvassing for a change. The question was whether that change would solve the problem that we're trying to solve for the country. So the campaign for democracy groups started, and started after before I think it was even before just after June 12th, when you know there are conversations about June 12th. Then we were students. As Aye said, I was in Ife and I was a student union leader, and Ife was playing a very important role at any point in time, more than where Aye was then, University of Lagos. So where Shiwere was, you know. So we were the leading comrades, student comrades at that time. So Ife goes first, then others will follow. So Aye and others follow us, you know. So the time that Ife goes to, that's where. So we were in Ife, and we decided to participate, you know, and the struggle. But this was at a time when we were all facing expulsion. We were also facing court cases, and I remember that we had cases from the beginning of uh, my own tenure with Ebwabudek Borua in 1992, you know, till the end. We had like court cases on us. So we were not, so we didn't even enjoy the use of the Students' Union building, because if we try and get there were bailiffs that were coming to serve us, you know, court orders that we have violated contempt of court and all of that. So we had to go on self-exile. So as at the time the election would take place, we were in University of Lagos. Showara was then the president of the Students' Union. So it was the one that we ran to. So we were actually staying within the University of Lagos so that we don't go out and then get arrested. So I remember that immediately after June 12th and on June 24th, when the decision was made, you know, that the decision not to um, keep the mandate of the people was made. I remember that myself, Jowere, Shole, of course, and some other people actually went on the street, and we hijacked a trailer. I wish Jowere is here. You know, we hijacked a trailer. It was a trailer, you know, that was being driven, and so we mobilized people, and we entered the trailer, and we were driving the trailer around the whole of Lagos, using the trailer to mobilize people and to call on the people on the need for them to resist the military junta and their agenda, you know, to forestall the and their agenda to destroy the hopes of the people. So by and large, so but the point I'm raising is that during that period we were meeting severally. There was this relationship between, for example, ASU, trade union groups, um, other groups that have been led by the then late Beko, and other comrades, particularly the labor union was very strong. So there was that connection, between the students' unions movement and that other movement. So we all had the same agenda, we all had the same goal, and we're moving towards achieving those as one single entity. We were clear about the issue. There might be disagreements with respect to whether you belong to Labour militants or you belong to M31M, which I was involved with, or you belong to the group which has Bamdele Atulu. We were all together in one accord. We believe that we needed to change something. So for me, I think that the crops of NGOs that we have today, some of them didn't come with that kind of background. They came, they met us along the line, and there are quite a number of them who met us along the line. So they also joined the struggle, but they were not activists, So or maybe they were activists, but they were not leftists. I think maybe that's better classified. So they joined the struggle along the line. So by the time we got to 1998, CLO, yes, CLO has been on for a period of time. So, and it became like a place where everybody gather, to also take decisions on issues and all of that. So thereafter, I think after CLO battled a lot of other non-governmental organizations. Now, I think one major issue was the fact that maybe we started with clarity in terms of ideology. We knew where we're going, so we had clear ideologies. But I think that most of the NGOs that we have today, the people started for different reasons. For example, if I take the constituency I work with, and children, some people started women NGOs because maybe they became widowed. Some started to their children. So the ideology is not there. So it became more like people started because of empathy. So the core reason why you should have a civil society gathering was really not there. So, and you can see, even in terms of a whole lot of, for example, I lead the transition monitoring group. And I think yesterday, or 2 days ago, so I sent a statement around the Twitter on the Twitter ban issue and talking about, the fact that it's a way of stifling the society and also closing the civic space and the issue of freedom of expression and all of that. I would expect that anybody who claims to be a civil society person would have an understanding of that. So I then said, okay, can the 36 members or state coordinators of CMG, can they sign on to that? Then I got about like 5, 6 of them saying, no, we never signed on to that. That is not right. Who is Twitter? Why should they be talking to our president? So my point is that the civil society space has now become all commerce space, to the extent that, there's also depth of understanding of the issue that we intend to address, by the so-called leaders of the civil society. Then, because also, when we were doing the struggle before 1993 and thereafter, the struggle was not monetized. Everything you do, I remember when my parents give me money to go to school, I go to school and I use the money to go to Kano and other places. So people were doing this with without being reimbursed. There was no incentive. So they were just doing it because they had the passion, to change the society. But what we then see now is that there seems to be a lot of monetization of the civil society space. So, and that takes priority over and above, other issues. And so you see NGOs that came up for that purpose, and that's why you see that the respect for the civil society space is also not there anymore. And the civil society space is also not doing what is expected to be done, because most of civil society organizations are not based on any ideology. They're activists, quote unquote, but most also not based. They're not doing it because of the passion. People are also doing it because it's also a survival thing. So I think that that could be the reason why the civil society could not take the same space that the civil society took in years back. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Biola, for that. She has raised a couple of very, very important issues. But well, she was talking of unilateral. But I'm happy that she confessed that when they were on exile because they couldn't even take over their SUB, they had to seek asylum at the only university with a lagoon. Anyway, that aside, I think they are both practical and ideological issues from what she has pointed out. I mean, there's the ideological aspect of lack of theoretical, philosophical commitment. I mean, and then practically, I think somebody that captured it, and these two are linked, was Professor Festus Iyai in his lifetime. During a conversation we were having on the sidelines of an NLC school, he said, look, Baba, we were richer politically when we were poorer materially. And what was he pointing out then? That against any odds, people will find their way to meetings, not because they will get it, because they even have to struggle to get there. But now, I mean, it's the other way. But anyway, we've had that because we want there to be discussions on this. But I'm keen to get back to my very dear sister Ma. I think that whatever a problem there might have been, because I've been in touch with her too, we think that should by now be sorted. I'm asking you to unmute again, Ma. Can you try to do that? And great, excellent, excellent. So back to the question we raised earlier, which dwells on, how does radical civil society, how do we address, in a sense, is a flip side of the question to Biola of that, how do we rebuild civil society as a partisan force to end insecurity and corruption and build a more just society? Comrade Ma, you have the floor, please. Hello? And could you start the video if you could? Could you check probably the earpiece? It's oh. And we're eager to hear from you. Please uh, or speak directly to the computer. Probably take off the earpiece if there is such on. At times, this technology bit goes loco e poco. It's but are you using other speakers apart from the no? Hello?
Okay. Yes, Sister Mo is here. Let's go on. Yeah. Can you
Okay.
hear him?
Yes, I can hear.
I think that one of them to us is that immediately we have civilian in 1999. So
that means the computer is working.
the company is working. I don't know why they are not using my voice.
Okay, maybe you can reduce the volume of the computer. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think what happened was,
You can reduce the volume of the computer.
Could you use the headphones
Yeah.
again?
Hello?
Hello, go ahead, yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So I think what happened to us after the Gogos struggle for the actualization of June 12th, we now decided we have to specialize beyond the movement. We have to specialize in democracy work, accountability, and engaging with the government. And we didn't take serious the issue of taking power since we missed the first opportunity of not participating in politics. We were not sure whether we want to participate. We were not sure whether they take it serious or yes. We lost that first opportunity. And we now decided to specialize in NGO work, which has affected all of us. And we don't employment everywhere. So many people came to NGO work without actually having to believe in anything. All the people in our movement before the civilian during the struggle for freedom, something is binding us together, and that thing is country. And to have a country that everybody can call his or her own. And we also were clear on our ideology. If you are not a masses, you believe in something actually. And that's the belief that binds us together. And among us, there was no one involved because everyone who doesn't have enough, we all rally around and say, I see that those who have this will share it among themselves. Nobody was actually out to be the special one. But after we entered the civilian room, something happened. And that thing that happened is that all of us were competing. As people who is going to be the best among us. We were competing. There was nothing actually binding us together. If you are not competing on area of funding, you are competing on area of activity. And so many things happened. And unfortunately, the forces, individuals that can call and everybody that did not help matters. That took them away. The people we can hear that when we see them, even if we disagree on so many things with them, we will say, yes, when they are here, we can be here. And we have not really, after the death of so many Beko, Chigali, Chima, and the Bamizera, we do not really have people that can call a meeting and all of us will go. And actually, another thing that happened to us after the years ago is that the labor has become a kind of Nollywood. If the president of NSC and CU get it right, then the labor will get it right. If they are people working for government, the labor will be working for government, which was not the case during military rule. During military rule, there were people, leaders of different unions that were shining despite the fact that the labor was sold by Pastor Babu and Babangida. But there were people like Chief Kokori of Lupin that were shining. We were able to shut down the country because Lupin was ahead of everything and worked very hard. So that with the kind of labor we have, especially since we have labor force, the labor you cannot even trust that you can go to that place. So it becomes very difficult. Because I could remember even in year 2003, we have to work with the government of Bola Tinubu to mobilize our people. Because we no longer have the people who make the people. So our good soldiers. So and hunger is also a very big problem. So many of our food soldiers are very hungry. And they also have family. And only very few companies are taking care of some of them. And we don't really address their needs. And so many of them have actually said that they have wasted their years and everything they have for this struggle and have nothing to show. Very few of us are the ones who are doing as the one that can really eat finish waiting in a day. So I think basically we can rotate what has happened to the movement in the area of the ideology, in the area of poverty, in the area of NGO work, competition within NGO work. And now, in the NGO work, you are being respected if you can get many funding, not if you have a belief that the society can be better. So we have to reconnect. If we have to change, if we have to get back the movement, we have to talk to ourselves. And there are so many cracks in our march to get to where we are here. We have to cement those cracks. We have to bring ourselves back together because the country needs the movement more than anything now. And also, I said this in a training, in a CDA training in year 2002 or so, or one of them. I said because all of us are growing up, we are not replicating ourselves. I can't stand up here and hit my chest and say, there's somebody I can call and tell her for a younger person of 20 years. We are not replicating ourselves. And all of us are growing old. And the people we call something are those who have come to work in NGO. If it doesn't work, they look for jobs. They don't have any belief for what they are doing. If you touch anybody from my tribe, I will fight you very well. Or from my religion. There's nothing binding them together because they were not grounded in ideology. So, what they see, how we work is how they see. So we need to go back to those things that bind us together. We don't necessarily need to agree because I've never seen us agree. Because when, as a member of the secretary of in Lagos, when June 12 happened, we thought for us to join the struggle. And because God is something somebody you cannot say. He took it upon himself. He went to Bacon. They went to even Abiola, collected from 250,000, and I know that the June 12 struggle nearly scattered win in 1994 in Katsina. That they win the June 12 people, though we were two in number in Katsina, but we carried the game because our focus was clear. We know where we are going. We know what we want to achieve. And those who do not even agree with us, they have no choice. When they came to a meeting in Abuja 1995, they have to resign because we now know that we are fighting a struggle that is not only good for us as we members, but also good for Nigeria as a nation. If we get a team right, in my community, in my town, in Ruku, in Ebonyi State, Abiola won. So if the people came out to vote for him, it was not about me, I didn't vote. It was about the people who voted. And we have to stand up and say, their vote not only counts, that we have to be respected. And so if somebody decides that it cannot work, so what we say that it is going to work. And we believe ourselves. We know how we discuss, we challenge ourselves, we follow among ourselves, we disagree to agree. There's one thing about us is that at the end of fight, even in winning, we will end up with a person we fought to win. When not in her house, they eat their food and laugh and she knows who drink alcohol. They drink and chat. We save the next morning. And all the relationships we form with we are still working stronger and stronger every day. Those are the things because we do not quarrel because we hate ourselves or we are competing among ourselves. We are actually forgetting the ideology. If you are saying gender, and they call me massive member, we say there's nothing gender. We should not have it 50-50. We can have a whole argument on the side of it. But something is clear. We love ourselves. But there's something that we need to do very quickly today. We need to reconnect to our roots. We need to reconnect to our roots. The people, according to my sister, Hawa Mustafa, the people who are destroying the country, who want to kill, are less than 5%. And then 94% of people are either cracking hands for them or complaining in their different quarters. We can actually mobilize them. We can actually mobilize them to join because something is working for us. The anger in the land is massive. we can mobilize that anger and the voices and say, yes, we can do it. But we have to agree among ourselves as the leaders, because those who believe in something, who have a ideological common background, we have to agree with among ourselves that we need to save our country. We can put our differences together. We can put our small envies together. But we have to agree. We need to save the country. We need to bring back that spirit, the spirit of oneness, the spirit that makes us to be calling ourselves sisters, our brothers, comrades, brothers. We need to bring it back. And for us to save this country, we should not just to complain. We have no excuse to complain. Because if we complain today, in 20 years back, when we can no longer jump up and down, we will still complain about those things. Because the president didn't do what he was supposed to do. And Yanatua did not do it. Jonathan didn't help Mama. And actually was Jonathan who made the right to happen. Because Jonathan wanted with his own confidence that people needed anything they did. And now we have come to a very dangerous path that if we will not have money. And the best thing that happened to us is this great country. You know, the best thing that happened to us, every small person in this country has this confidence. If you see him or her in Ghana, you will know for sure this is a Nigerian person. So we need to bring back this confidence. We need to bring back our country. It's not just to a story. We need to do this yesterday because time is running out. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Ima. The one thing I've known Ima for, since as Wing Secretary for Lagos State, that was even before June 12 started, is she's very candid and speaks straight to the point. And she has done that now. She has pointed out a number of reasons why, and these are issues that have to be addressed to rebuild. The question of NGOism, how the logic of NGOism results in competition, the vision of what I often call proposal-driven activism. She also pointed out a very important issue which is often overlooked: lack of regeneration, or let me put it this way, inadequate regeneration of cadreship. Any movement that does not regenerate, any radical or revolutionary movement that does not regenerate cadreship will die a natural death. She also pointed out a number of things. Well, for want of a better way of putting it, also a kind of class division between comrades who might be really running things in NGOs, and a number of comrades even outside NGOs. The question of even survival and how this has it's part of what the capitalist system uses to discipline, so to speak. But so whilst I'm getting feedback, would soon be having other speakers. Whilst awaiting them, I think we could have discussions now, especially flowing from the presentations, the two presentations, which have looked at the problem of what is to be done. And also in doing that, I think it's good to put in perspective that, CORE is an effort towards addressing some of these. The question of building a revolutionary coalition, the issue of a revolutionary party, which the African Action Congress, an affiliate of CORE, has been rising up to the challenges of, and the question of what is to be done within this context and beyond this context. Comrades, the floor is open. If you would want to ask questions, make a contribution or comment, could you kindly indicate by raising your electronic hands? I'll be watching here, and we'll be glad to call you to make such a contribution to the discussion. If you would prefer to, you could put your question or comment in the chat box and it will be read out. but we encourage you to raise your hand and speak and join the discussion. I don't see any hands yet. I'm expecting to see a couple of hands. Whilst awaiting comrades comrades, don't feel shy. You can raise your hand and speak. We have quite a reasonable number of us here, and I believe I've seen a number. I don't want to call people to speak, but anyway, what I would also do while expecting the show of hands to take the floor is to also say one or two things from my viewpoint also, as having been involved in that period, and like Ma and Abiola also keeping the flag of struggle flying, is that there are two sides to this. Often when we look back at June 12 and the role of radical and revolutionary civil society movement, it is, I mean, like people say, usually the good old days, the old days are always good. But one thing we shouldn't also forget is how opportunity and preparedness meet each other. The issue of the relationship between spontaneity and organization. At a meeting a few weeks back, Professor Lorode, whom we all know, I'm sure, said that, look, when you talk of CD, I mean, the left, at that time, he said, all of us were maybe 100, 200. I mean, but because these were organized under a platform, the Campaign for Democracy was formed in November 1991. When it was formed, it was almost insignificant except to those of us on the left that were part of forming it. Yes, you had a major figure, Dr. Bekor and some Kuti, who had earlier led, struggles of the Nigerian Medical Association, and I mean, also, of course, from the Anikulapo Kuti lineage of resistance and struggle. There was that. But before him, even the first acting chair was Alao Akaba Basharu, also a figure of repute, who there was MBA chair at the time and all that. But beyond them, I mean, most I'm quite happy to see speakers also coming in now. Senator Shehu Sani has joined us. You're very much welcome. So without much ado, I was doing a filler. We also continue the discussion subsequently, but having the comrade senator joining us, we'll go straight to calling him in. So I would quickly introduce him and pose a question to him. Senator Shehu Sani was president of the Civil Rights Congress of Nigeria and national vice chair of the Campaign for Democracy during the June 12th struggle. He suffered persecution from the military for his boldness and was detained for several years, regaining his freedom only with the restoration of democracy in 1999. He was elected to represent the Kaduna Central Senatorial District in the 8th National Assembly 2015 to 2019, during which he served as chair, Senate Committee on Foreign and Local Debts, and as vice chair of the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs. Comrade Sani has authored several motions and bills in the Senate, and the comrade senator is the chief executive officer of Africa Freedom Foundation and Center coordinator of Africa Center for Peace and Development. He loves reading and is himself an avid writer, having many literary works to his credits. Noteworthy, he's a rights activist. You are welcome, comrade. You played a key role. Yeah, you're very much welcome. You played a key role in the June 12th struggle as a leader, a mobilizer, and political prisoner. And you have had the opportunity to see how the democracy, in quotes, we now have really is from the inside as a distinguished senator, as well as from the outside as a continued activist. Why do you think it is a far cry from what we fought for? What lessons could we draw from the June 12th struggle for the fight against a repressive civilian regime and divisive politics today, which includes ethnic mobilization that separates the working class people. What is to be done? How do you think we go about this, drawing from your vast experience on the field and in partisan politics? You have the floor, Senator Shehu Sani. Please speak to us. I think you are unmuted. You have the floor. I think there's a network challenge there. Okay. You can, oh, sorry, you got muted back automatically. You can unmute. I've asked you to unmute now, please. Comrade, you can unmute. Hello? Comrade Shehu Sani, you can unmute. Okay. Yes, you can unmute now. Could you click on the unmute button? I think we lost him. Well, we keep our fingers crossed. I think he's having some internet connectivity challenges. And we also are expecting Comrade Show, who says he'll join in a minute. So, well, the floor is still open, and we have a show of hands. But just to round up on what I was saying whilst expecting hands to come up, is that when you look at what has been built now, even with core, and there are also other efforts, and I mean, ASCAP, and even an effort at a broader networking. The numbers even now are more than pre-June 12. But, and this is very important in what Ma said, the issue of honesty, political honesty and transparency, even when we fight, after that we go and share a beer together. But, and I think the issue of ego that is even sharper now, not that it was totally absent then, you know, over political, what some will call political personal differences, but it's sharper now that you see that comrades often might, face, instead of, we have to major in the majors, and the major thing is about how do we fight to win system change, and that is a challenge that this generation of activists and older activists also in this period need to rise up to. But talking of spontaneity and organization, it was because there was organization on ground. There was organization on ground. That was how, when the Yawa gas of June 12, that gas, you know, that steam could be turned around somewhat, because there was some form of steam engine in the shape of campaign for democracy. And that is the kind of effort that, like at SCORE, we're trying to build, you know, and it is also one of the reasons why I enjoyed. We need to take the streets, we need to fight, and we're calling on all to join the June 12 protests on this coming Saturday. to demo, because the street, as Mike Davis pointed out, is a major site of popular power, but it's also not enough for us to take the street. This is important, definitely, but we also need to deepen political education. We need to broaden ties with every aspect of every section of the working class people, stand with workers during the strikes, stand with mechanics and others in the formal economy, against land grabs and so on and so forth. And now, I mean, I'm not exactly what Yoruba will call Asoromagbesi, or is it radio? So, comrades, whilst we're waiting for other speakers, we should have a couple of questions and interventions. I would seize the opportunity whilst awaiting further questions. Well, there hasn't even been any questions or comments, to call on my co-convener, Comrade Gbenga Komolafe of the Coalition for Revolution, to speak, please. Also, a consistent revolutionary comrade since that same period and till now. Comrade GK, you have the floor.
Thank you, Babaye, and good evening, everyone in the house. I think I should express appreciation for comrades in the house who actually have found time to join this discourse. I think this actually provides an opportunity to reflect on what June 12 actually meant. June 12, 1993 meant a lot of things for millions of Nigerians who trooped out on that day to vote. A lot of them said the fact that a lot was wrong with the election. It was conducted by the military under a very warped constitutional framework. It was also a point when we had a long-drawn transition program that had wearied out most Nigerians, as the Babangida junta kept promising he would leave, he would hand over government to a democratically elected government, and he kept shifting the goalposts, coming all with all manner of acrobatic political displays. It was to go in 1989, then it was to go in 1990, then it kept postponing until 1993. And despite the flaws of that process, Nigerians trooped out to vote. And it's popularly acclaimed that it was the freest and fairest election we've ever had. And I think there is really no controversy about that. At the end of the day, a clear winner emerged, and but for reasons that were extremely parochial and selfish to the military junta, they decided to another election and decided to perpetuate themselves in power. And of course, Nigerians trooped out to resist that. It became a long-drawn struggle that lasted close to a decade. So what were people fighting for? I think people were fighting against autocracy, people were fighting against the Babangida totalitarian, despotic, extremely corrupt regime. I think people were also fighting for genuine democracy. People wanted to take their own destiny into their own hands in a genuinely democratic process. People wanted development, and I think this is very fundamental. People wanted development because people were mobilized into the street actually by the fact that there was a lot of hardship, cost of food, cost of living, was extremely high because of the extremely ruinous and retrogressive economy, political economy that the Babangida regime practiced, which included massive privatizations, which included the implementation of all manner of damaging neoliberal economic policies, which led to massive retrenchments in the public sector, a massive closure of factories, and massive employment of Nigerians. And because of its hardship, Nigerians troop out in the hope that a democratic process will be ushered in that will reverse that trend into oblivion, as it were. So it was natural that people will come out to say they will not accept that annulment. Like previous speakers have noted, it was quite intense. A lot of activists across generations so are involved. We had the likes of Alao Akabashorun, who was the NBA president, in the heat of that struggle, and who, irrespective of that position, which is usually seen as very conservative, actually threw everything into the ring and fought alongside Nigerian working people for democracy, good governance, and development. We had the likes of late Chief Ganifa Wemi. We had the likes of Dr. Bekor Asomkuti, and so on and so forth. We also had young activists coming fresh from the student movement and from their own battles against the siege on the campuses, which the military led on the campuses, because the campus also became a bastion of resistance to military misrule throughout the 80s. These veterans of student movement also graduated into the civil rights movement and became part of that intense struggle for democracy and for good governance. We also had the trade union movement, which, though the bureaucracy at some point was very ambivalent, but at least a section of the movement had to breach with the mainstream. Like Uma mentioned, people like Chief Franco Kori of the Nupeng, as well as Chief Mitinda Bibi of Pengasan, who call a strike of oil workers. And of course, you know what that meant, because that actually meant shutting down the economy, which is driven by crude oil exports. And of course, the military junta didn't take kindly to that. These two gentlemen, leaders of those two unions, were clamped in jail for years. So the struggle was, like it has been expressed, the objectives were very clear. But unfortunately, we had an anticlimax in 1999 in the sense that the nascent democratic forces perhaps didn't have enough time and resources to pull together and form a strong political movement that could actually take over from the military. So as it were, the dominant bourgeois elements, bourgeois politicians took full advantage of that state of unpreparedness, took over power in 1999, and since then progressively unleashed the most vicious program of underdevelopment on Nigerians. They have actually, I think they will actually make the military green with envy right now, with their level of extreme insensitivity, extreme arrogance of power, and of course, extreme corruption. They have continually pursued the very same policies and programs that Nigerians actually rejected by coming out en masse to protest against the annulment of the June 12th elections. They have continued with the program of unbridled privatizations, which actually amount to theft of public property. We have seen situations where public property is worth billions of dollars was sold for a few million naira. And then all the assets was stripped. And that process, we've seen the emergence of a few billionaires in dollars who have bought and stripped our national assets. They become billionaires. And a lot of people, unknowingly, unwittingly, because of the bourgeois, because of the lies in the popular press, a lot of people even see some of these elements as heroes, and oblivious of the fact that they are singularly responsible for the terminal crisis we are in now. It is also important to mention the kind of politics and electioneering we have had since 1999. Like Professor Claude Hackey remarked in 1996, in a 1996 publication about politics in Africa, we've had a situation where elections have been fought like wars. And so the parties that emerge from election, they see themselves as victors of having overcome a people in a war. They treat Nigeria as a conquered territories. They treat Nigerians as conquered people. They harm thugs and hooligans with sophisticated weapons to rig elections. And of course, they don't have any control over these thugs who subsequently unleash mayhem on the rest of society. This narrative can be readily observed in the Northeast, where a sitting Governor Bunu Sheriff actually harmed the Boko Haram people for the sake of elections. And at the end of the day, because the crisis that emerged from that was also mismanaged by the politicians, Boko Haram has bloomed into a foremost terrorist organization, destroying life and properties at will in the northeastern part of Nigeria. The same trend has played out in the South-South region, where governors have harmed so-called militants who subsequently unleashed kidnappings for ransom, massive mayhem, massive destruction of the environment in that part of the country by busting crude oil pipelines, further destroying the environment and subjecting the people of that region to a climate of fear and unrelenting irredentism. We've had situations in other parts of the country, in the Northwest, where armed bandits, harmed by politicians, have turned loose with increasing vehemence a regime of terror on the rest of society. In the Southwest, it is important to mention the fact that politicians like in the Southwest have also harmed the Agberos, who extort money from us every day. That's because the money they extort from the motorists actually come from us. The motorists pass on the cost of that extortion, daily extortion at every bus stop. They pass it on to the commuters. We all pay that price. It's one of the reasons why transportation fare is so expensive in Lagos. These people extort billions of naira from Lagosians every day. These are people harmed and empowered by politicians to rig elections, to serve as their muscle men, to fight protesters, to undermine popular struggles and movements. We have seen situations where armed robbers caught in Kwara State have actually confessed that they were harmed by the erstwhile governor of that state, Olusola Saraki. So the point is that the state of massive insecurity we have now did not fall on us by accident. It is not a product of the fact that some Fulanis ate the rest of us. It is not because of the fact that some Igbo people are troublesome. It is not because of the fact that people just woke up and decided to carry AK-47. It is because politicians actually harmed people because of their selfish and greedy interests to rig elections, to subject the civil populace to their manipulations. They harm these people and they cannot control them, and so on and so forth. And right now we have elements that are making extremely inflammatory statements. It is amusing that the Buhari regime has not even ready to arrest this type of elements who are making extremely inflammatory statements, extremely divisive hate speeches, in the name of, ethno-religious, playing the card of the ethno-religious sentiments in a most irresponsible manner. We've had this situation, and with all the acclaimed toughness of General Buhari, they have not been able to rein this kind of elements, and so we have this situation of unrelenting war since 1999. On the economic front, it has been unrelenting war. Cost of food is becoming, unaffordable for most working people. The cost of fuel and energy has skyrocketed because of the incessant increases in electricity tariff, in petroleum product prices, and so on and so forth. We've had situations of the organized private sector getting terribly decimated because of the ruinous economic policies of this government. We've had war on the social front, whereby the educational sector is virtually in ruins, whereby the hospitals, they're just a little better than mortuaries because people actually go there to die. We've had situations where a 100-kilometer road, Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, has been under construction for 20 years. This is a road that was actually built by the military in a few years, after the Civil War in 1970. And so on every front, there has been a campaign of unrelenting war by these politicians whose sole interest to assume power and appropriate all available resources onto themselves. In cities like Lagos, we've had situations whereby those who work in informal sectors are continually dislodged from their workplaces, from their mechanic villages, from their sawmills, from their woodwork clusters, from their aluminum fabrication clusters. These people are continually dislodged and dispossessed of their land. Most often, this land, when taken over, become private properties of politicians or their fronts. It is also true that most of the eviction that has happened in informal settlements, almost 30 evictions have been recorded, whereby informal communities have been destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people have been rendered homeless without any form of ameliorative social housing program to resettle people. So these are the kind of situation we've had. And it is time to actually begin to question what exactly is this so-called democracy about? Is it about a few people becoming super rich at the expense of everybody else? The point has been noted by various development experts that the state of inequality in Nigeria right now is only getting to be compared to that of Brazil, where inequality is so high as part of the legacy of centuries of slavery. So it is sad that we now have a situation where we'll be compared with a Brazil that actually had a record of over 300 years of slavery, whereby a few families have been able to amass enormous wealth at the expense of free labor supplied by slaves. And here, we've not had that kind of slavery, at least not in that form, but we are now at the same par in terms of social and economic inequality with a country like Brazil and a country like South Africa, where we have also had extreme exploitation based on racial discrimination, the apartheid system. So we're having a situation of massive dispossession of working people across the board. And it is time we begin to interrogate this kind of affair, and we begin to question it, and we begin to put up alternative narratives of development. Like these previous speakers have said, there was a common vision that drove the June 12 movement. People were very clear about their vision for Nigeria as a united nation of for working people that will foster progress and development of all that live within that space. with full respect for all the ethno-religious identities and nationalities. That vision has been violently assaulted. And it's time we also begin to interrogate some of the responses to the crisis. Is it to now begin to say, yes, we want to divide on ethno-religious lines? Is that a solution? Can we learn lessons from other nations that have traveled that path, from the SY Soviet nations under the USSR that are splintered? And since then, over 40 years ago now, that we've had that division, the truth is that most of these nations have had to fight continuous civil wars, have had to experience pogroms and extremely unstable economies, and even the larger ones, among them, like Ukraine and Georgia, we know what the situation in those places. So we must begin to interrogate all of these so that we can formulate a new vision for our people and our country. Nigeria harbors 1/5 of Black people all over the world. How we manage this moment has far-reaching ramifications for all people of color all over the world. So it's an onerous task on all of us. We have to define this moment properly. We have to articulate our program of intervention properly, and we have to mobilize people through vigorous political education so that we can rescue a whole race from oblivion. I think I should stop at that level. By way of summarizing, to say that June 12, 2021 should be a supreme moment of reflection, a supreme moment of redefinition, and a supreme moment of putting a new agenda for development for our people forward. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that incisive and in-depth analysis of June 12 in relation to now. Apart from being the co-convener of Coalition for Revolution, Benga Komolafe is also General Secretary of the Federation of Informal Workers Organizations of Nigeria. And during the June 12 period, he also played a number of important roles. Starting before the June 12, he was speaker at the University of Ibadan. And that was for those that were limiting me to only Unilag. That was when I was speaker at University of Illoria as well. But anyway, now we have two hands up. Comrade Idris Ajia, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Comrade, for inviting me. And thank you to all of the previous speakers. I can't begin to explain or describe how much I've learned from this session. I'm a child of the 80s, late 80s. So I was still maybe in my very early teens, teenage. No, I was pre-teenage even when the 1993 elections happened. I just remember the excitement of the ads, but not much else for Abiola then. So now, in 2015, we all recall that a lot of Nigerians voted for Buhari. Yeah, okay, we could argue that the turnout was low, maybe 40% or something, but still, the majority of that 40% voted for Buhari. And I see online during Nigerian political discourse, a lot of people come out and say, oh, we told you so, this guy was a brutal dictator and all of that, but you didn't listen. Ignoring the context of what people had to endure before they became desperate enough to seek the supposed iron fist of a former brutal dictator. And the reason I raise that is this, that people would have voted for him or any other thing because what they were voting was against something, not for something, which is the nature of desperate voters. And again today, we see another a new trend. And I'm very glad Comrade JK raised this, the ethno-nationalists who are all over the place now making their arguments. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a bit worried because their argument seems to be spreading like wildfire. It's winning out. And that has got me worried. So maybe my question to you, all the panelists, whoever wants to take it up, is how do we deal with this situation? Do we sit down and negotiate with the champs of these ethno-nationalist movements, or do we, go out forcefully and make our own argument? And we have to be realistic because the left is extremely weak at the moment. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Idris, I'm sure that we'll get responses to it. Arákùnrin Bọ́lá Kalẹ̀.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Babaye. Firstly, let me commend the effort of all the speakers, most especially Comrade Abiola. He spoke extensively on the Marxism ideology. Yeah, please let me quickly say this before I will now ask my questions. The first thing I want to talk about the economic, cultural, and social rights. I think we are missing this thing out. In any society that is going to have a future or that's going to take care of the masses, there must be a complete protection for economic, cultural, and social rights. We all know what we mean by this. We mean the right to quality education, free and quality education, the right to free and health facilities, and the right to good job. If you look at the situation in Nigeria now, virtually every basic needs are being provided by individual. At your various home, we are the one that are responsible for our light, for our water, health, school, and all that things. And secondly, on the activism and ideology, we all know that activism without ideology is emptiness. We have thousands of civil society in our community, in our country now, but how many of these civil society have the understanding and the ideology of the left that we all claim to belong to? And in addition to that, I want to talk about the workers. Marxism is about workers' ideology, so about pro-workers. How are we connecting with the workers? Most of the workers, do they have the understanding of what Marxism is all about? Are they ready to align with the ideology of the Marxists? Are they in support of the agitation of the revolutionaries? Because if you think that maybe Buhari is the problem, this is the problem, we couldn't deceive ourselves. The problem is the system. The problem starts from, now let us even imagine, if you have any issue in Nigeria, we rush to American embassy, we report to this, report to that. These are the neoliberal capitalists. There's nothing that America is going to offer us. As long as we assume that America is there to listen to the masses of Nigeria, we are only deceiving ourselves. All these neoliberal capitalists, already they are the one that are taking Africa backward through their neoliberal institutions like IMF, like World Trade Organization. Imagine what happened in what happened in most of the African countries. So meanwhile, my question which I would like to ask to conclude everything is that how are we preaching these ideological movements to the workers, which is the largest constituency in Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arákùnrin. Just to add, Arákùnrin is a shop steward with one of the aviation sector unions, ATSAN, and he has raised a very, very important, actually a couple of important questions. One dwelling on the centrality of theoretical understanding to inform as a guide, not as a dogma, as a guide to action. And he has also asked how the movement connects with the working class. And I noticed Biola, I think connectivity issues was not fully here when Idris raised the question or about how do we address the widespread influence that separatist politics is gathering. We have another hand up before coming to take responses to these questions and comments, and that is from Olushola Joel, also a trade unionist, General Secretary of the Automobile Union, Autobates. Shole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Babayi. I want to commend all the speakers here today for expressing a very strong views concerning the June 12th struggle of 1993 to 1998 or 1999, thereabout. But it is better to set the record straight so that we know where we are coming from and we know where we are going to take up the gauntlet and move forward from. What people terms progressive politics is what I really want to question, because it is normal after a prolonged, protracted struggle for over 8 years during IBB and Abacha, Absalam, activists from various walks of life in Nigeria, they got tired. They got actually tired after June 12th, which was not really realized. But I mean, it turned out to be expression of aggression, against the ruling class, the best so ever that we have had. Having said that, a lot of activists were drawn into the political arena, either by appointment, either by way of, being fascinated with politicians, to the extent that what we are really suffering in political space of radical left, what actually buried the left movement, in 2011 so-called, we should be able to, or 2012 uprising, we should be able to realize that mistake and drawn. I'm very thankful that the speakers before me, they have drawn the essence of having ideological, and theoretical grounding when you are struggling, when the class struggle, Having said that, it is important to see the thin line. There's a thin line, that has to be drawn between activists campaigning for the system change and those politicians that comes to hijack the struggle. They draw people to APC today, they draw people to PDP today, and then we lost the social movement that's supposed to be a force. When you look at the apartheid struggle, it's quite distinct from the way the June 12th struggle would have been a standing force that we fail to have a structure, And when people try to build, the mass thing for individualistic reason, I normally queried it. People who build institutions, institutions will continue for generations. And that's why most of the generation, there's a gap, because all those things, we did not really convert it to structures. Today, you can talk of Brazil, but if you go to Brazil, they know these are slaves, they know that they are slaves, and they are fighting their oppressors, and they are telling the oppressor that you are making us slaves, we don't want to be slaves. They have ideological, structures, structures in terms of training cadets, institutions, what you can call institutes of their own, they can even fund, external comrades to just like Cuba and all these Soviet Union were doing those days. We miss that gap and it's going to take probably decades because it would have been an opportunity for all the West African countries. We miss it, and I cannot, unless anybody can translate or interpret what it's meant actually by progressive politics, because all those comrades that have gone to the politics, either to pick up appointment or to serve as SA and everything, at the end of the day, they believe that they want to help the people. How far have you been able to help the masses? How far? It doesn't translate to anything, because neoliberalism is quite different from all policies of capitalists before now. They have privatized society, including everything inside the society, including human being. Because in our own very eyes, we have turned to, the country has been turned to a talkative, just letter. The editors will write. How is Dangote amassing wealth continually till today, while they are sapping the masses, and then they continue to give him endless, concessions? These are ideologically rooted, conflicts that's supposed to draw. Ordinary taking what causes anti-sapping those diseases, because Babangida wants to take IMF. Eventually took the money, but he coughed, he coughed it out. The students mobilized, even the workers who are reluctant, every society was grounded. So if you really look at it, it is a minus and that is why the comrade Shima Ubani of late memory, he tried his best to draw the left together on ideology, so that, but we found out that some personality, they went, this is I don't know. We have to define comradeship, because some people are ministers today, some people are governors today, they still call them comrades. I don't know how they have been able to be structure, for movement to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Shola. He has also raised some very important issues. I want to call on the speakers to respond to this, but just a few quick ones, which is both good and worrisome in a sense. I got feedback from at least 2-3 persons who pointed out that they wanted to learn more, having been, I think, even for some of them, younger than Idris, our ebullient physicist. And so they wanted to learn more, but which is, I say, partly a good thing, because looking at names here, a lot of those that I know, and from a number of the affiliates, few one from the Pan-African Consciousness Renaissance, from the Movement for African Emancipation, from the Socialist Workers and Youth League, and more even from the Take It Back movement, are young comrades. It shows, that there are efforts at regeneration of cadreship, but a lot still has to be done, particularly with theoretical grounding, as well as linking practice in a systemic way to this. So thanks to all those that have raised questions, and also just to point out, I had a lot of things on Brazil. Eu sou brasileiro no meu coração. I'm partly Brazilian, at least in my heart. So we're not, there's the issue of the slave trade, but we're not slaves. We fight and continue to fight, which I believe is the essence of what Shola was saying. So, Comrade Ma and then Comrade Biola, the questions. Again, one is, how do we as radical and revolutionary activists address the spread and spreading influence of separatist politics? And two, the issue that was from Idris. Then two, there was a question of how do we ensure that Marxist theory is more generalized within the movement again now as it was in that period, and then also how does the revolutionary movement, how the activists of today connect much more with the working class movement. That was from Arakuri. And of course, Shola's were comments, but he went also through quite a range of issues, including some of what set us back and the need to address this, including unity of the left as much as possible. And yeah, so Comrade Ma, you have the floor to respond to that. I'll try. You can unmute now. Yeah, you can unmute. Yeah, it's unmuted. We could have the same ingenious collaboration with Comrade Biola that we had the other time. You see, women always find a way around the problems. I mean, yeah. So maybe we give that a shot if there's still the technical challenge. Hello? Can we give that a go? Unfortunately, it's like we've also lost Biola to, yeah, it's been fluctuating with connectivity issues, but she's joining back now. Yeah, Comrade Biola is now in the meeting. I think our audio is yet to connect. While we're waiting for Biola's audio to connect, Mark, could you try it with my phone? Let's see how it works. I will, okay, the Comrade Biola's phone is not on, but let's give it a try here.
I'm back.
Yes.
I'm back.
Oh, okay. Can you collaborate again?
Like I have said before, I am saying that there are many. I looked at it from 4 perspectives. One, from a theological point of view.
Comrades, can you hear from Uma?
Yes, she's coming.
Okay, yeah, go on. Yeah.
I said, I have to start because my audio actually messed up my contributions today. I have to start by appreciating you, Baba Ake, for this this conversation, and it's heartwarming to see people saying we want to learn more and we want to be part of this. That's what we need, and we need more of this going forward. And we actually need
She's off.
We lost you. Can you come back?
Hello?
Yeah, I think we can hear you now.
Okay, Seth, did you hear anything at all?
Yeah, we had you up to the point where you said that it's a good thing that people want to learn in taking things forward.
Well, I actually said that I must appreciate you for organizing this conversation. And we can see beautiful outcomes. People saying they want to learn more about our history, and they know what works and what did not work and the gaps. And many people have actually talked about the history of June 12 struggle. Those people that commented and actually linked it and actually provide solutions. Many of the people who talked are mainly comments. And they are saying we need to build strategic alliance with the labor movement. Nobody can say it's a beautiful suggestion. We can't do it alone. And if we don't have that strategic alliance with the labor movement, it worked in the past, it worked during the struggle for the independence of Nigeria, when Zigi's youth movement actually connected with the labor union, and the result, the colonists had no answer to it and to move away. I just want to say I am a bit worried. I am very worried when I had Comrade Shola that was saying that the military were tired. The military were not tired. Abu Sama Aboga, before he came, the
We lost you again. Hello? We lost you at the point of the military are not tired. Yeah, we lost you at the point of the military are not tired.
I said that Comrade Shola that the military were tired. That's why they left. And I'm saying that the military were not tired at any point. That the blood of Nigerians made it possible for them to grow. And if they struggle, actually they were fighting. Abacha was fighting against the whole world. Everybody globally, South Africa, Nigeria, they were tired of Abacha. They fought the battle with us. Because Nigerians, the movement lifted the Junta struggle and brought international dimension to it. And the war rose against General Abacha and the military. He had no answer to it. They were not tired. The civilians who were enjoying or we are not enjoying for the past 22 years was made possible by the blood of Nigeria. The blood in the streets of Nigeria, it was purchased by the blood. We celebrated the Queen of Good Life the other day on the 4th of June. She was killed in the streets of Nigeria for fighting for the restoration of the mandate of MKO Abiola. It was not cheap. Coming to the comments, the only way forward is for us. Thank God some of our comrades, those who still believe that we have a Nigeria and we can work towards getting the Nigeria of our dream in our time. We have some of them in the labor movement.
Hello? Hello.
Sorry for the misrepresentation. I'm talking of comrades.
No,
comrade.
It's like I've been less successful than Biola in connecting with you. Probably call Biola now. I don't know whether it's Biola, please. You see, that's the problem with the connection was much better. Call Biola and let's use it with Biola's link as you did earlier.
National identity number known with your mobile number. Please dial *109# and follow the prompt. Sorry, your call cannot be completed at the moment. Please try again later.
Okay, I hope she's not calling me.
Well, if you can't get up, let's keep trying from my end, yeah.
Please dial *109# and follow the prompt.
It's ringing.
Yeah, go on, let's give it a shot.
Hello? Yeah, come on.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. I think that the military didn't just get tired and leave. I have to civilian people to take over. Now that civilian government we have enjoyed for 2 years were purchased by the blood of Nigeria. It was not, and that is our issue. And we should not listen to anybody to tell us the hand of God or anything. It was purchased by blood of Nigeria, and it was very expensive. So, and I'm saying again now that we actually need strategic partnership with the level of organization. And looking from our history, also the struggle for our independence against the colonialism in Nigeria. When the march was made, was very sticky movement connected with the labor leader, and things started happening. And the white man has no answer to this than to give. That we need to reconnect with, we need to mobilize the labor movement. Not the people in the leadership of the labor movement today. There are people who are behaving more like professionals. They are not behaving like the labor leader. But we can actually make them and mobilize them. But because there is no point to have a country like this where nobody, no citizen identifies it. Everybody is not, nobody believes in this country. Even when you are discussing with those who are supporting what is going on in the public, when you engage them in private, they will be complaining and say we are tired. But when they come to public, they say, no, did you agitate when Obasanjo was the power of Jonathan? Why are you talking now? But we've been talking, only that they didn't speak. And even the democracy of civilians they are enjoying today, they were the same people who engaged, but they struggle before the even change happen. We need to connect with ourselves. We need to read our history. We need to understand our history. Because we have a rich history. We have a history that I can come to my body and say, this is what I want. And there's no aspiration. They will come out and go to practice. We need to revive our journey and make sure we're on the right path. Because if we do not work together today, we might wake up in 10 years' time to say we have actually labored in vain. So we need to wake up and work together. And this conversation, we need to move it further. Because we now come to do, I'm tired of spiritual meeting with the people having one-man structure, with the people are going to understand where they are coming from. We are talking there, and they are talking to us, and you don't know what they are saying. They are not, no, we have done this, we have done that. It's not if we have done that, where are we where we are now? So if we have finished the battle, we are still where we are. We need to reconnect with our challenge those cracks that have happened. Because that even happened in our family relationship. And we are still, we need to see it as another family and come together, bring this movement back together. We don't need people acting like champions. Because if we are acting like champions, we might not get there. We need to go back to where we used to be. When we look at ourselves as equal, nobody, there's no animal farm in our business. Everybody will respect each other equally. We need to bring it back. Because there's no relationship that can survive without respect. Everybody is important. Even our food soldiers, they are more important than those who give federation. Because they are the people who will want the fire. And they are people who will say, even you and I are adopting our fire. They are never fire. We need to connect to everybody. And we need to say,
We have lost you again, Ma, but I saw that you were about rounding up. I'm very sorry for that. But I think, I mean, the fact that despite the technical challenges we came this far, I'm very sorry if there was still a bit more for you to leave. You have, your responses have been quite very useful. Just to clarify, as Shola put in the chat, that he actually meant that activists had gotten tired. Maybe I could add to that, well, activists, some had gotten tired, some it was a case of getting more belleful, that kind of thing. So, but the thing is, nothing should deter us, you know. Without much ado, and with apologies once again to Ma, especially in the light of the technical challenges and appreciation of Biola's role in keeping that on despite it. Now, Biola, over to you to respond to the questions and give your closing remarks, please. I've asked you to unmute. You can unmute now.
All right, so maybe that was what happened when Ma was talking.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think that must have been what happened. Maybe she was muted. Okay, but you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, thank you so much, my sister Ma. I'm not surprised conclusions, and I think that's the best way to go. The need for us to synergize our efforts, you know, and then I think it's also important for us to begin to build a critical mass. As a student of Marxism, we know then that it's important to build a critical of people to be able to dismantle capitalism. So I think that's very important, and we need to go back to the basics. I remember that when we used to be in school, we have ideological classes that we do like every week, where they come and you're expected to present papers, so it even sharpen your understanding. And I must say that in my way, in all through my life, I have been using those things that I learned while I was in those classes, you know, to analyze issues. So when I see the politicking of the political class, I know it and I can identify it and I can predict where it's going to end. And I think we need that kind of knowledge for our people, particularly young people as they are growing up. So we need to go back to those classes. We need to go back to build a movement from within the schools. If we didn't come across some of this conversation, would have just grown up like any other person, thinking that if we remove a Buhari, we have solved the problem of Nigeria. But we know that it's deeper than that. It's deeper than Buhari, it's deeper than Obasanjo or any of those political class who are there. You know, we know we're fighting a system, we're fighting a superstructure. And until when we dismantle that superstructure, we'll not be able to address the issue of poverty. Somebody has spoken about socioeconomic right here. Somebody has spoken about the fact that we need, you know, there's poverty in the land. We need to, if we keep going on with this kind of system, which the political elites are using, well, I think it's part of the political class, Jimmy, you know, to throw that in the spanner, to be able to whip sentiments, you know, for themselves. I participated in the so-called national conference in 2015, and you know, you just see it exposes. What it did was to expose me to how the political class, the political elites, how they think and how they negotiate, you know, negotiate the lives of the people, negotiate themselves, the incentive that goes around it and all of that. All of them having meetings from one German's house to another, you know. The person was doing his own meeting, the Netherlands were doing their own, you know, and the Yorubas, the Banjo were also doing their own. But at the end of the day, just realized that the major thing about this whole thing is that people were just trying to satisfy their own selfish interest. It is not about us. So it's not about us. It's not about us at all. So we should not allow them, you know, to fall us into their category, to their space. So I believe that what we need to do is to be clear about the ideology, to know that we need to dismantle capitalism. We need to rebrand. We need to recreate. We need to re-energize the young people. We need to re-energize. We need to synergize. We need to work with labor, market women, strong coalition that can, and we need to work with them in such a way that we bring them to our side. We cannot be tired if we really want, to liberate the African people, the Nigerian people, and if we want to liberate the people of the world globally. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Biola. Something came to my mind when Biola was talking, when she said the dialectical, a sense of dialectics had been useful in all aspects of life. There are two of our comrades that I later met years after school. Awukpetu from Ife, who had become a marketer, and Dr. Olu from our own group in Unilag, who had become a pastor. And both of them said, even in leaving the socialist movement, the dialectical thinking gave them an edge. I'm not saying that we should have more people either leave the movement to be marketers or pastors. But what I'm trying to say is that that sense of grasping the truth in its totality, it's something about the dialectical method of thinking, which cannot be overemphasized, and which is important as a guide to action for us. I think that's one of the most important lessons of the reversal of the left in a national sense, in a broad sense from the 90s to now. But that being said, our speakers have spoken eloquently on this. I also want to emphasize two things. One, with separatism, what Idris said about what should be our response. The first thing is for the left not to support separatist politics. We forget now that one of the things that gave separatist politics strength in the 90s was that partly in looking for a shortcut, you had a lot of people on the left turn to separatist politics. In 94, the birth of the Odua Youth Movement and the Odua People's Congress, the Odua. So all these, but what happened was that eventually, when you start from the national question as against the social question, you become a kind of cross-class collaboration or cause, and then it is also greased with money by the people that we say that we share the same ethnic nationality. You now see a lot of people on the left, one way or the other, if they are not linked with Tinubu, they are linked with his former minister of his treasurer, who later became governor in Osun State. So all these kind of things are important. And then secondly, we should have no illusion that any section of the ruling class is progressive to the end that will stand with us. That is why for us, as Biola, and also with Biola, it was not about MKO. Our position was clear, neither IBB nor MKO nor Abacha, but the working class people. So we should have, because in the coming period, there will be a lot of confusion, and we need to face this with theoretical understanding and practical activity on the ground. That being said, we've spent quite some time now. We've had quite rich discussions, and I thank our speakers so much. Imaodi, thank you so much. Despite the technical challenges, and your words were full of wisdom and inspiring. Biola, thank you so much. Also for helping out with the technical challenges and for your presence. With Comrade GK Gbenga Komolafe, they say I do we are co-conveners. But your contribution was excellent and also helped to put things in better perspective. To all the comrades who asked questions, made comments, and all of us here that participated in listening, and I've seen a lot of messages, to me here that, look, we've learned a lot from what happened almost 30 years back. Thank you all. The struggle continues. And get out there on Saturday. Join the June 12th protest. Philosophers have interpreted the word. The point is to change it. We fight, to borrow from Chima Obani's words, regime change is our stance, freedom, mass resistance is our vehicle, and system change is our goal. Viva la revolution, viva. Thank you all very much.